Hello friends, this is Adam with Movie Guy 365, and today I'm going to go over 10 more movies that deserve to get a 4K upgrade. With Sony's recent re-release of Black Hawk Down and the Guns of Navarone on 4K, it got me thinking about other war films that have yet to make their jump to the format. In fact, the whole genre, I feel, has some of the best stories out there, wonderful cinematography in many cases, and hey, if you're feeling generous, throw in a nice restoration where needed, and hey, even upgrade the audio. So there's plenty of films out there that cover war or war themes that would really look and sound great on 4K. This list of 10-ish war movies that I'm about to talk about are not listed in any particular order, so my number one is not a number one or anything, but if anything I don't cover in this video you want to put in the comment section below that you would love to see get a bump in 4K, go ahead and sound off down there. All right, let's get started with my first pick. When it comes to prestige directors living in our times, top of that list, of course, is going to be Steven Spielberg. And even he has several movies that are in his filmography that I don't feel get a whole lot of love or attention. And Empire of the Sun is certainly one of them. It is a fascinating World War II drama, and it also stars a very young Christian Bale. And one of the things I love most about this film is not only the story, which I think is great, but the way it is shot and the score. Wow. I mean, this one really just stays with me every time I go back. And I would love to see this get some 4K love. This is dying for an HDR pass. I would love to see this film get the proper respect it deserves. I feel in the last, maybe 10, 15 years, it just hasn't gotten talked about a lot. And I think a nice new 4K edition of the film would bring some new eyes to it. And I think really it deserves to be on this list, and I'm hopeful that one day we will see it happen. Last year, the 4K edition of the remake of All Quiet on the Western Front came out, and it is one of the best 4K discs of that year. Visually, audio-wise, fantastic. So let's kind of bring it full circle and release the original version of the film, all in its black and white glory, on 4K. I think it would sell really well. I like this movie. I think it's different from the remake, obviously, but it has such an impact and it's got some great imagery to it. And also black and white movies, if you don't know or are unaware, look really good, especially with the nice HDR grading. It gives you that rich grayscale. Whites look fantastic. I would love to see this one come to 4K. It's cinema history that doesn't get nearly enough recognition these days. But yeah, let's go ahead and put these two on the shelf right next to each other in a proper 4K. I'm very hopeful one day this one is going to come to our shelves. This next entry is a bit of a twofer, and if you know the history behind these films, you'll understand why. I'm talking about Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima from director Clint Eastwood. If you're unaware, these are filmed at pretty much the same time, I think simultaneously, and they tell, two sides of the same story. And they're both fascinating films. I really enjoy going back to both of these movies. And sadly, the Blu-rays are a bit dated. They definitely need an upgrade. I would say maybe some light restoration, give it a nice pass with HDR, and I would definitely not say no to an audio upgrade. Like I said, these movies are great. If you've never seen them, I would certainly make it a double feature. I always do. But I'm hopeful one day we will see these added to a 4K shelf. I would definitely pick these up, and I think a lot of people would agree. This next entry, I always hear slight whispers that it may be coming to 4K at some point. I don't know, maybe something's brewing in the international market, but this film also has a special place for me. It was one of the first foreign language films I ever watched, and wow, it's a long one. And I also believe it has multiple cuts. I'm talking about Das Boot. This is a great submarine story. It's really a fascinating film. Yes, it's very long, and a lot of people, don't like longer movies, but I'm certainly not one of them. I was riveted from the first frame to the last, and this one definitely needs some 4K love, full restoration, give it that full workover, great HDR grading, and once again, audio. I think this one, because it is a submarine-focused film with all the underwater and the action there, an Atmos upgrade, oh, I can only imagine what would happen. But yeah, Das Boot, great film, needs a 4K upgrade pretty much desperately at this point, and hopefully one day we will see this one happen. Of most of the movies on this list, this next entry is probably the least likely to get a 4K upgrade because guess who owns the rights to this one? Disney, from their 20th Century Fox acquisition. But George C. Scott and Patton, whew, this movie it's almost like a force of nature. I mean, George C. Scott is great, but I remember when I had the old DVD of this film, and even then I could see that there's some great visual elements. Fast forward to now, would make a great 4K. I mean, this movie, it's so good. It is so good. And once again, a lot of it has to do with George C. Scott. He owns the role. But also, it's an important kind of film in cinema history. But, I would love to see a full 4K restoration of this movie. I think it deserves it. Patton on 4K most likely is going to remain on the wish list, but stranger things have happened, so maybe one day. I talked about Steven Spielberg earlier, but there's another director who I don't feel gets nearly enough recognition amongst, maybe more so amongst cinemaphiles, but the average person. I'm talking about director Peter Weir and his film Gallipoli. Also, when it comes to World War I movies, there aren't nearly as many as a World War II or even some of the other wars. It seems to be kind of, of course, I just talked about All Quiet on the Western Front, but a movie like this, which is like very focused from Australia and the whole Gallipoli campaign, I think would deserve and should look great on 4K. I really enjoy this film. I don't watch it nearly enough. That's one of those things, but I think a full 4K restoration, give it a full workup, it would look and sound great on the format. I'm very hopeful one day we'll see this one happen. It's a great film. It's worth checking out. So I'm hopeful, but we will see. This next entry is also a twofer. Both are ensemble war films, but admittedly one is more serious and the other has got a little bit more of a humorous slant to it. But I think they deserve to both be on this list, and I couldn't decide one over the other. So I'm including The Dirty Dozen and Kelly's Heroes. Both would look and sound great on 4K. Of course, The Dirty Dozen being the more serious of the two, it has some great scenes. Great cast also, really phenomenal cast. And I think that it definitely needs some TLC. Give this one a full restoration. But on the other side, you also have Kelly's Heroes, which once again has a little bit more humor to it, but also has some hard-hitting moments and some great cinematography. I think both of these films deserve a 4K upgrade. I think it's likely that one day we'll see upgrades for both of these movies. It's kind of more of a matter of when than if, but I enjoy both of these films, and they both deserve the 4K bump. When you think of Studio Ghibli, you think, of course, wonderfully made animation. I mean, the studio takes on several different themes and styles, and of course, they even have movies that focus on war. And Grave of Fireflies, this one still gets me every time I watch it. And I, to my knowledge, don't even think that any Studio Ghibli films have made it to 4K. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but Grave of Fireflies would be a wonderful 4K bump. I don't want to spoil the movie for you, but I would, out of all the movies on this list, this one probably hits the hardest emotionally because it is the writing in this is top notch. But I would love to see Studio Ghibli films hit the 4K market at some point. Maybe one day it'll happen. But just as a side note, I do recommend this one, but just be prepared to be moved on it. But yeah, Grave of Fireflies on 4K, I would certainly add that to any list. This one, no exception. This next entry, while not a traditional war film, it has those themes ever present, and it's more of a thriller. And I'm talking about Jacob's Ladder. I remember when I first watched this one, I was probably in my early 20s, and it freaked me out. I'm like, what did I just watch? I have since watched it multiple times, and as maturity and everything happens, you appreciate it a lot more. But wow, of all the movies on this list, this is probably the more unique visually. But to that end, I think a 4K full restoration is in order, and it has some great elements to it. But it's not a pretty looking movie, but I think with the proper restoration, a nice dialed in HDR, nothing too flashy, and I would absolutely love to even see an audio upgrade because there's some great psychological stuff that happens that I think would benefit from the additional height channels. But Jacob's Ladder on 4K needs a full restoration, needs a bump to the format. So I don't know if we'll ever see this one, but who knows what the future holds. And for the last war movie that I would love to see get a 4K upgrade, Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line would definitely be on my list, if not near the top of it. I think a lot of people would also agree, and I get asked about this occasionally in the comments of various videos, when this is coming to 4K. I don't know. The rights on this one could be very interesting. Who knows if Criterion still even has the distribution or if it even translates to a 4K release. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think 20th Century Fox had the original rights to it. It may have licensed it out to Criterion, and by translation, that would be Disney now. So who knows? But I'm a very optimistic person. I would love to see this get a 4K release. I'm hopeful one day it'll happen because Terrence Malick's films are beautifully shot. And if you get a nice HDR and Dolby Vision grading to this one, it would look phenomenal. And I would love also, probably asking for a lot, for an Atmos upgrade. But I think a lot of people would agree that the Thin Red Line on 4K would be one of those they would pick up day one. I'm hopeful it'll happen, but we will see. And that is my list of war movies that I would love to see get on 4K. Now it's your turn in the comment section below. What movies would you love to see get a 4K release that cover the war genre or even war genre adjacent? Let's talk about it. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. So until next time, this is Adam with Movie Guy 365. I will see you at the movies.